All right, Citizen Youth, how we doing? How we feeling tonight? We feeling good? Feeling good? Turn to your neighbor real quick and just give him on a scale of 1 to 10 how you're feeling tonight. You know, is it a 6? Is it a 7? I don't know. Tell them how you're feeling. Turn to your other neighbor. Tell them how you're feeling. Your second choice, second option. Tell them how you're feeling. But man, I'm excited to be with you guys tonight. Obviously, I wasn't in the room last week. We were wrapping up our family series called Family Ties. And if you didn't know, we actually held our very first parent seminar. It was super cool. I think it's worth celebrating. We can give it up for that tonight. Parent seminar. Y'all, we had over 100 parents last Tuesday, and 150 tuned in on our YouTube. It was super special. Pastor Galen took his night and just poured into parents. And so if your parent wasn't there last week, maybe you didn't know about it, maybe they didn't know about it and they missed it, you can head to our YouTube channel, and you can actually find it on there and send them the link just in case they missed it. But did you guys enjoy the Family Ties series? I know it was super powerful, super good. But tonight we're actually jumping into a brand new series called Project 412. And I know a lot of you're probably wondering, what does that mean? What is 412? What is that number? We're going to dive into that a little bit tonight. But this series is going to be a little bit different. You're going to see and hear from a lot of different students. Students are going to be the ones up here preaching on the stage. Students are going to be leading you guys in worship. Students are running production. They're going to be greeting up front. Every single team that makes up Citizen Youth, students are going to be actively leading. And so if you want to be a part of that, definitely let us know. But Project 412, where this comes from, is actually straight out of the Bible. It came from a verse found in 1 Timothy 4:12. Many of you know this verse, but Paul is talking to this young leader. His name is Timothy, and this is what he says in 1 Timothy 4:12. Paul says, "Don't let anyone think less of you because you are young. Be an example to all believers in what you say and the way that you live, in your love, your faith, and in your purity." So what we're going to do tonight, I'm only preaching super short, like 10, 15 minutes. So don't cheer too loud, okay? Some of you are like, thank God. Get him off the stage, right? But I'm preaching pretty quick tonight. I'm just going to kind of cast the vision for this series. And then actually at the very end, we're going to invite up a few student speakers, and you're going to get to hear from some of your peers tonight. So I'm super excited about that. But just kind of wanted to cast some vision for this series. And so I want you to lean in real quick, tune in, just because we are actually unveiling something for the first time that we have not done before. And we've been working behind the scenes, thinking about who are we as a student ministry, what do we believe, what are our core values, and that type of stuff. And so tonight, for the very first time, we're actually launching a Citizen Youth vision statement. And this is really just who we are, what we believe, what we're called to do. And we've updated our website. It's citizen.church/youth, where you can go find this. We've completely updated it if you want to go look at that and stay in the loop with what's going on. But here is our brand new vision statement. I want you guys to read this with me. So this is who we are as Citizen Youth. It says, we are a Christ-centered, Spirit-led movement of students building God's kingdom in our schools, families, and city. And I've said this a lot, but this is really the core of who we are. It says, we don't do ministry for students. We do ministry through students. Together, we live out the hope of Jesus, bringing renewal, purpose, and change everywhere we go. That's who we are. That's what this series is all about. I think we could celebrate that. I want to reemphasize this part that I underlined right here. This part, I've said it a million times before, but it says, we don't do ministry for students. We do ministry through students. So that means nights like this, series like this, it's not just about you sitting in your seat while someone old, kind of outdated like me, kind of preaches to you, right? Like we get it, I'm old, monk, big bro, OG. But actually, our vision, who we are as Citizen Youth, is actually that you would be the one to lead. Our vision is that you would be the one to preach. Our vision is that you would be the one to serve. And our vision is that you would be the one to carry this ministry forward. And so Project 412, really, that's the living, breathing picture of that vision that we're going to see over the next few weeks. And so tonight, you're not just going to hear about it, but you're going to see it in action when we hear from a few of our students. So you guys excited for the series? I think it's going to be pretty cool, pretty exciting. But like I said, I'm gonna talk for a few minutes tonight, and then we're going to invite them up to preach on this topic. But I was scrolling on social media this last week, and I'm kind of old, and so I laugh at like really dumb, like millennial stuff, right? I know you guys don't laugh at it like I do, but I came across this post, and it was kind of like, has anyone ever seen like a post about like blueprint fails? Something that definitely wasn't built the way that it was supposed to be built. You guys ever seen those before? I think they're pretty funny. I found a few that I want to kind of show to you tonight. I think I have like maybe 6 or 7 of them. But here's this one. Can you guys imagine a pool that has like carpet around it? Like it probably smells like wet socks, probably smells like a junior high locker room. So whoever built this, like obviously they got something wrong there, right? Like that just seems like it shouldn't even be legal. Let's look at the next one. What else we got? This right here. If you're over like 6 foot, that's not good for you. That's Adrian. He's over 6 foot. Yeah, so obviously that's a fail, right? Like that's not supposed to happen like that. What else we got? What's the next one? I don't even know how you're supposed to walk up those stairs. If you're like Spider-Man, maybe you could sneak around. Or if you're a gymnast, maybe you can climb up somehow. Let's look at the next one. I've never seen this before in my life, but fridge just right smack dab in the middle of the kitchen. I don't know, maybe you like that kind of stuff. I feel like that just looks a little bit weird. It's like definitely not supposed to be there, right? I think we have a few more. What else we got? Right there. Imagine waking up in the middle of the night, going to get a drink of water, and you just fall down into your basement. I don't know. I would definitely do that. Do we have another one, or is that it? That's it. So obviously blueprint fails. It's funny. But what's crazy to me when I look at something like that, things that failed and things that were built that maybe were supposed to be a different way, what I came to the conclusion of is nobody built those things wrong on purpose. Nobody woke up someday and said, you know what, let's waste a lot of money and just build this about as bad as anyone could build it. I'm sure these people that built this probably worked really hard. They probably spent a lot of money. I bet they even had a big vision for what it was going to look like. But the problem with these fails, it was actually the fact that the blueprints were off. And how many of you know when the blueprints are off, the whole building is going to be off? And so this tells us one thing. It tells us bad blueprints don't just mess up buildings, but they mess up everyone who has to live in them. Did you know that your life is actually someone else's blueprint? The people around you, your teammates, your friends at school, your families, your life is a blueprint that other people are looking at and they're copying their life after. Because they're following your patterns, they're following the mistakes that you make. And I think some of us, we don't even realize the amount of influence that we actually have in other people's lives. So the question I want to ask you tonight is this: what kind of blueprint are you giving them? What kind of blueprint is your life reflecting? And I would take it a step further and ask, is the blueprint that your life reflects worth copying? Is it worth someone else mimicking? Or is something a little bit off? You guys tracking me? You follow me tonight? So you see, in this passage in 1 Timothy 4:12, we see that Paul knows Timothy he's young. He's inexperienced. He's not, this old leader that's been doing this for a long time. And so he also knows that because he's young, there's a lot of people around him that actually might look down on him because of his age. Again, this is what 1 Timothy 4:12 says. It says, don't let anyone think less of you because you are young. Instead, you should be an example to all believers in what you say, in the way that you live, in your love, in your faith, and in your purity. When you look at the original wording here, this word that Paul uses, example, is actually this Greek word called typos. Typos. And when you look at this word, really what this means for us, it can mean a few different things. It means a pattern, a model, or a blueprint. So what Paul is telling Timothy is, hey, who cares if you're young? Your life should be a pattern. Your life should be a model, and your life should be a blueprint. And not only those things, but it should actually be something that someone else would actually see as worthy to copy. And so here's the title of tonight's quick message is this. It's Be the Blueprint. Be the blueprint. The main point of this message tonight that I want you to understand is that your life is actually a pattern that somebody else is copying. That's what your life is. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at just 2 points tonight, straight out of this verse. And then, like I said, we're going to invite a few students up, and they're going to unpack this a little bit further. But the first point tonight is this. Leadership is about example. It's not about age. It's about example, not about age. Again, I want you to understand the context of what Paul is saying here. Again, Timothy is most likely a teenager or a young adult at this time, and he's leading an entire church. He's leading a church in Ephesus at this time. And so Paul's writing to him, knowing that people are probably looking down on him. People are probably more experienced. People have probably been doing this a lot longer than Timothy. But again, he tells Timothy, don't worry about all that. Set an example for the people in the way that you live your life. Again, everyone was probably older than him, smarter than him, more experienced than him. A lot of people probably doubted Timothy in this moment. But you know what Paul doesn't say? Paul doesn't say, you know what, Timothy? Like, you should probably wait till you're a little bit older to start leading. You should probably wait till you have a little bit more experience. Wait till you got it all figured out. Paul doesn't say that at all. Instead, he tells Timothy, he says, Timothy, I want you to be an example. Be the blueprint that is actually worth copying. Which reminds us that leadership is not about how old you are. It's actually about the example that you set. That's what leadership is. And you're in this room and you might be thinking, you know what, Jonas, like, I can't really control my age. There are people that are older, smarter, been doing this a lot longer. You can't control your age, no, but you can control the example that you set. I mean, think about your sports team. Any sports fans? Maybe some of you are like a part of a team. Maybe some of you watch like professional sports or college sports. Hopefully it's not the Cowboys, right? We just lost the opener, or the Texas Longhorns, right? We just lost both of those. If we wouldn't have traded Micah Parsons, we probably would have beat the Eagles, but instead we lost by 3 points because we couldn't stop Jalen Hurts on the run. And my heart's broke, and you can see how this would affect me, right? But maybe some of you, you know, you're a part of a sports team, you follow a sports team, whether it's college, professional, whatever. Really, when you think about this, usually the captain of that team, oftentimes, is actually not the one who's the most talented. Usually the captains of the teams, those are the ones who actually set an example for the team. They're the ones who are encouraging their teammates. They're the ones who may not be the most experienced, but they're the leaders of the team. And oftentimes, they're not the most talented people. But that's how I think we should be in our schools. That's how we should be in our families. That's how we should be with our friends. Because these people, they're the ones who hustle, they're the ones who encourage, and they're the ones who actually keep their team together, and that's what leadership is all about. Leadership is not about a position that you hold, it's actually about the pattern that you live. So I just want to encourage you tonight on this first point. Stop waiting for the future to lead, but actually lead by example today. Lead by example right where you're at. And that's exactly what Paul is telling Timothy here in this verse. And the second and last point tonight is this. Your influence actually starts right now. Your influence starts right now. Again, Paul is looking at young Timothy, and he says, don't let anyone look down on you because you are young. In other words, what he's telling Timothy is this, is don't let your age and your inexperience become your excuse. I think a lot of us, if we're being honest, I think sometimes we just make a lot of excuses, right? Especially as high school students. Again, our age or inexperience, whatever it is, we view those things and we say, I can't be a great leader until my future, until I become a young adult, until I step into college, until I step into the real world. I can't be a leader. But I actually think that influence doesn't start later, but influence actually starts right now. You see, the truth is you already have influence. And maybe some of you in this room, you don't even realize it yet. Some of you, you got those group chats with your friends. Maybe you send some things that you shouldn't send, right? You got influence. Maybe some of you are part of a sports team and you've got influence there. Or maybe you have influence with your siblings, or maybe you have influence of the atmosphere of your school. Maybe you're part of a school club. Maybe you're part of something that's a part of your school that you have influence in. I actually believe that one single student living boldly for Jesus today can flip an entire friend group. It can flip an entire sports team. I even think that it can flip an entire school, an entire city around. Which means, and it tells us, influence is not about someday in the future, but influence is actually about today. How you're living right now. And again, Paul, he talks to Timothy and he shows him exactly the blueprint of how to live this out. He says, be an example, but not only that, here are specifics on how you should be the example. And he gives 5 different things that we're gonna look at in this series. He says, be an example in your words, be an example in your life, be an example in your love, be an example in your faith, and be an example in your purity. And that's the blueprint. That's how you be an example. That's living a life that's worth copying. And so here's my final few questions for you tonight. If someone followed your blueprint this week, what kind of life would they end up building? Would they see Jesus in your words? Would they see Jesus in the way that you live? Would they be inspired by your faith? Would they even notice that something is different about your love and about your purity? Because when the blueprint is strong, that's when we see that the building will actually last. And so here's the best part about this series is I don't have to be this guy up here preaching to you and telling you what you should and shouldn't do, but you actually get to hear from your peers. You actually get to hear from people your age that are living the exact same thing as you, and they get to share their experience. They get to share how they're walking it out. They get to be the ones challenging you guys. And so tonight, we're actually going to look at those first 2 examples tonight, speech and actions. And I reached out to Andrew and Savannah, and they're going to be preaching tonight. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to lean in tonight. I want you to shout them down. I want you to take notes. And I want us to be the example tonight in our words and the way that we live in our actions. So if you could actually go ahead and help me welcome Andrew Vincent to the stage tonight.
What is going on, Citizen Youth? How are we tonight? The title of my message is Live in the Hello. Hola, bonjour, konnichiwa, aloha. The world is filled with different ways to say the exact same thing. Every culture, every country has their own greeting because words are powerful. 1 Timothy 4:12, set an example for believers in speech. I want everyone to imagine this. The trumpets have gone off. Judgment day has come. Jesus is standing right in front of you. He pulls out a book, but it's not a normal book. It's a book that has every word you have ever said in it. And he asks you, does this book reflect my love? I know this is a deep question and we aren't judged on words alone, but truly think, what is in your book? I know for a fact that my book is filled with poorly placed jokes and many, many awkward conversations with girls. But it's also filled with countless lies and countless things I wish I could take back. And this leads me to my first point. What I wish my book had more of is hello conversations. The word hello actually has German roots, and it's pronounced Hala. And it wasn't used as a greeting. It was actually used as a word to grab your attention. People would be on street corners yelling, Hala, just to have your presence. On average, we as teens see 2 to 3 people every week. We see 2 to 3 new people every week. How often do we just let them walk right on by? How often do we get the chance to spread the gospel, but we watch it walk right past us? I know for me that when I was growing up, I had crippling anxiety when it came to talking to strangers. It got so bad to the point that I couldn't even talk to a relative on the phone. But like a pop quiz I didn't study for, God's voice hit me out of nowhere. He was yelling, Hala, do I not have your attention? Are you not called to speak to the nations? After that moment, I haven't stopped stepping out in faith. You see, some of us might not have the problem of talking to somebody else, But the problem is we have already said too much. We have said so much, in fact, that we wish we could take it all back. And this leads me to my next point. Something I wish my book had less of was everything I want to take back. Proverbs 18:21 says, "The tongue has the power of life and death." Some of us, including myself, have been such sowers of discord into this world that we have ruined relationships. We have hurt the people close to us, all because we didn't know what to say. But I have good news for you. Matthew 12:34 says, out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. So if our words are the breeding ground for death, then that means it's a heart issue, right? Lucky for us, I know somebody who is in the business of healing hearts. I know somebody who is in the business of changing minds, and that is our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. It doesn't matter what you have said in the past. It doesn't matter about that moment that you snapped at your parents. It doesn't matter about that moment on the weekends with your friends, because you are called. The words don't disqualify you. They point to God who redeems, for your heart is made new in the presence of God. Allah, do I have your attention? Do I have your presence? Okay. We're back in heaven. You are holding your book. You are quite literally holding the story of your life. You go to open it, and it's blank. It's blank because we are not the ones who write our story. It is blank because we do not plan our lives. Jesus rewrote your story the moment he died on the cross. Your story is still being written. I do not see a publishing stamp on my story yet, and neither should you. Again, 1 Timothy 4:12, set an example for the believers in speech. Thank you.
Wow, was that an amazing message from Andrew? So we talked with Andrew about how we speak, and we broke it down word by word. He couldn't have done it any better. And I've heard this phrase a lot, where it's actions speak louder than words. And that's what we're going to be talking on today. And before I dive in, I have to tell you about my stressful situation. So I don't know about you, but I love online shopping. I think it's so convenient. I love online shopping. And I'm on Amazon the other day, because it comes in like 2 days. Like, obviously, I want my clothes right away. And so I'm looking at this beautiful dress. Homecoming is coming up. I'm like, I'm going to buy this dress. Looking at the picture, it looks like good quality. Comes in a couple of days. Worst thing happens. It looks nothing like my picture. And I was like, no way. The picture just deceived me. And I was thinking about this, where it's like, this has a lot to do with our faith. Sorry, guys. My computer just went down. 1 second. So we can post on our Instagram. We can have our Bible verses in our Instagram bio. Don't get me wrong, I do the same thing. We can post about our church festivities and the people that we hang out with outside of church. But then I was coming to think about it. A lot of these people we see at a party on a Friday night. We see them doing sinful behavior on a Wednesday after youth. This can do one of two things. This can either steer people from actually coming, or have a bad viewpoint on Christianity because of our actions. So church isn't only on a Tuesday and a Sunday. We need to carry out the word all week. If we choose to post these things, we need to live them out. God isn't just an aesthetic. He isn't here to accessorize our life. He's here to authorize our life. And now that brings me to my next point, being a light. In Philippians 2:15, it says, so that no one can criticize you, live clean lives as children of God, shining like bright lights in a world full of crooked and perverse people. You can be the only Christ people see in their life. And as a young Christian, that's a big burden to hold on. And even preparing for my message today, I was so nervous. Right now I'm shaking and you wouldn't even know. But the Lord in Timothy 4:12, it says, it doesn't matter on our age because he calls us up and he sets us apart. And he wouldn't have set this responsibility on our life if we weren't simply ready for it. I was thinking about this as well as, what do you mean, Savannah, being a light? When I want to walk in a room, I want people to be like, she has the Holy Spirit in her. I seen her at youth. You know what? I'm going to have a godly conversation with her, and I'm going to have the words to be able to have that conversation with them. I'm going to let the Lord speak through me, and I don't really care because the Lord is speaking through me. Even when the room isn't welcoming, don't fall into the thought that you should lower your standards. No one is the perfect Christian, and that brings me to my next point, pursuing perfection. See, I can't stand in front of you today and say that I'm a perfect Christian when I fail every day. We all do. I make sinful, bad decisions on a daily basis. But one thing that I know is that Christ was a perfect Christian. But because of our actions, we crucified him. And one thing that I know is I want to live more like Jesus every day. I want to be humble. I want to be kind. He loved us wholeheartedly, and most importantly, he forgave us. He was set apart from the crowd before he was even born. And in Jeremiah 1:5, it says, I knew you before I formed you into your mother's womb. Before you were born, I set you apart and appointed you as my prophet to the nations. And this brings me to my last and final point, walking separately. He sets us apart before we even had existed. He made us extraordinary, not like everyone else. And you would be asking, what's the difference between ordinary and extraordinary? Ordinary waits for a Sunday. It waits for a Tuesday. But extraordinary carries that out all week. It doesn't wait. There's no waiting. We have the ability to be burning hot on a Tuesday. We post with our friends on a Sunday. Why would we drown ourselves with cold worldly water and be lukewarm by Friday? Yes, we all have trials, challenging lives that make it hard. We can't control what goes on in our life, but one thing that we can control is how we cope with it. We can either run to the world and not be filled up, but the Lord fills us. We come on a Tuesday, we read our Bible throughout the week, and I know that if I control and say, hey, I'm going to read my Bible instead of reach out and gossip with my friends about it, I'm going to be just fine. And in Exodus 23:2, it says, you must not follow the crowd in doing wrong. When you are called to testify in a dispute, do not be swayed by the crowd to twice justice. We don't have to echo the crowd or walk the path everyone is taking. We can be set apart the way that God has intended us to be. When we live clean, bright, set apart, we won't just survive the storms. We'll overcome it even better when we have God in the center of our life. Now, if I can leave you with absolutely anything today, if you're like, what is this girl talking about? If I can leave you with absolutely one thing, if we claim his word, then let's live it out. The world is watching. Look, just like Jonas said, we have a big responsibility because we can be someone's blueprint. So are we going to live like him or are we going to live like the word? Thank you.